I'd like to thank you very much for coming. Stephen's going to give us some updates now. And thank you for supporting also Rainforest Reserves Australia, Friends of Chalumbin. Thank you, Bob and Shane, for showing up. And I think it's worth it. And thank you for defending our region. It's Jitterbal land, it's Jitterbal country. They did not consent. And thank you. And here's Stephen.
There's been a few updates. For example, last Friday, I had the privilege of meeting the State Energy Minister, Mick de Brenny, with the head of Wet Tropics Management Authority, the head of Terrain, and the head of Realliance, and also Knuth, Kensington North Environment Centre. Mick de Brenny basically has no plan, so the State Energy Department has no plan whatsoever for the rollout of renewables. There is no plan. He basically said that. So there's the State Planning Code 23 that facilitates the fast tracking of these developments. And in actual fact, that code facilitates developments like Chalumbin with really no legislation for a free-for-all. The wind industry is a cowboy industry. For example, we've had complaints about water sedimentation at Caban. We've had complaints about noise. The local community, like yourselves, complain about those issues. You go to the local council, they don't want to know about it. Talk to the federal government, they approved it, you go to the federal government. Oh, well, that's not our jurisdiction, water quality and noise, go back to the state. So people like yourselves are getting run through the ringer on these issues because no one is taking responsibility. Yeah, so under the code, there is no capacity for the community to be involved in any consultation. It's not legislated. The developers don't need to public consult with you. They do to get social licence, but it's just about ticking a box. There is no standards, there's no guidelines, there's no benchmarks for community consultation. So what they do is they have drop-in sessions. So you go in and you go, oh, this is my issue here, here, here. Oh, well, we'll mitigate that, we'll microsite this, we'll have monitoring for that. But that's all they do, there's nothing. Another problem,
just words.
Yeah, it's all words, it's all weasel words. Another problem is that the Department of Environment and Science is not a concurrency agency with the approval of these wind farms. So for example, a wind farm can go hard up against a national park or a World Heritage Area, but the Department of Environment and Science, which is the department that is in control of threatened species, are not a decision-making organised department in the process. So that's why we're getting these stupid approvals going through, because the Department of Environment and Science don't even have the ability to knock back inappropriate development. Another issue is that a wind farm cannot be built 1.5 kilometres from a sensitive site. A sensitive site is a shopping centre, a childcare facility, in some regards a residential home. In New South Wales, it's 5 kilometres. In America, it's 5 kilometres, but not in Queensland. And that's why we're having these noise issues here in Ravenshoe, Millstream, Tamil and Caban, because they're within the 1.5 kilometre buffer zone. Another issue is that we were never told that these wind turbines were going to be the tallest in the Southern Hemisphere. 235 at Caban. The highest wind turbines in America are 185. So these turbines are taller than any turbine in America. So these developments are occurring right across the state now. There's about 77 to 83 wind farms like this right now down the coastal ranges.
Every ridge, isn't it?
You've got Mount Emerald, and then it goes into High Road, Caban, Chalumbin, Upper Burdekin, Mount Fox. Then it goes into the Proserpine Wind Farm, which will be the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. Then you've got Youngala. Then it goes into Lotus Creek Wind Farm, then Clark Creek Wind Farm, stage 1 and 2, then into the Boomer Range Wind Farm, then into Moa Creek Wind Farm. And then there's about another 30 wind farms all around the hinterland of Gladstone. Yeah. Yes, there's a question here about what happens to all this infrastructure after 20 years, 25.
Yes.
The life expectancy of these turbines is 20 to 25 years. It's under the State Planning Code. There is no requirement for decommissioning. There's no obligation on the developer to pull them down after their life use. So what is happening, what we're going to see in 20-25 years, are these landowners being burdened with the decommissioning of these turbines. So, for example, Mount Emerald isn't running at the capacity, at the energy capacity it was promised at. It may not be financial for Ratch to redevelop that development. They can just walk away because it's a proprietary limited company. So it's called Mount Emerald Wind Farm Proprietary Limited. So it's all structured to go into administration. So they can just pull out of there, and then it's up to the landowner to decommission those turbines. It costs around $600,000 per turbine to decommission. So there is no environmental bond for these wind farms. For coal mines and coal seam gas, there's environmental bonds. So if the company goes into liquidation, there's some money there in the public purse to revegetate, remediate. There is nothing for wind farms. So there's the potential to have these legacy developments rusting in the breeze in 25 years' time because there is no legislation in place for these developers to clean up their mess. There's lots I can talk about, but I know we've been sitting here for 2 hours, so we'll pass over.
Thank you, Bob.
I just want to thank Shane and Bob for being here today.
I've had 3 meetings with Tanya Plibersek on this, and she has held it up now for 6 months. She was approached 6 months ago to give her permission, because the state government had given her permission, and she's held it up for 6 months. So you people have already achieved that, but that's nothing if they're going to still go ahead. She's in Townsville this week, and we've asked for a meeting with your representatives to go to that meeting with her. But she said to me, it is quite clear that they are putting something that is industrial, I don't know what the word she was, right beside some of the most valuably listed World Heritage Sites in the world. That's what she said. I didn't say that. That's what she said, right? So you got the message through somehow or other, but in her words, that to put something industrial of this nature, which could seriously threaten the values of arguably some of the most valuable declared areas in the world. That is the situation. So is she for it or against it? She just made that statement. So I just bring that message to the meeting here. But you know, from a person that comes from a place where there are no trees, no shade, or if not where we're at, because there's no shade where I come from. A few stunted little gum trees, you know, here and there, and the spinifex and the rock, and that's it. And to come here in this beautiful wonderland, you know, it's like dying and going to heaven. But to see it wrecked and turned into, I reckon it's a great statement, to see our nature wonderland turned into an industrial wasteland.
Okay, I've got a statement here. For those that don't know me, my name's Bombardier Calvin Groves. This is a letter from Mr. Roger Kelly, who used to own Glen Gordon Station, and his family owned Glen Gordon Station before that. He's given this to me to read today. My name is Roger Kelly, and I used to own Glen Gordon Station. I mustered all that country for cattle, and I used to muster Wurrura Station, where Chalumbin is all by horseback. I am 73 years old, and I spent 54 years in that country. They stopped the Tully Millstream hydro scheme there years ago, and dams would have been better than windmills. I am now again against the windmills, but I think they can build them somewhere else. Carrere is the home of the indigenous Pygmy tribes, which in its Chalumbin area, there are 2 Bora grounds, one of Carrera and one at Limestone. You could pick up stone axes there years ago and see where they took the bark off the trees for their camps. There is a trick station in that area, survey markers from the Second World War, which I'll explain a bit later on. One Tree Hill, Mount Pandanus, Black Mountain, Arthur's Seat and indigenous paintings. You have World Heritage rights on that site. Chalumbin, some of the biggest timber in North Queensland is in the area, and some of the wettest country in Australia. There is an orchid that grows in the Chalumbin area, the king orchid, the only orchid that has a scent. It's flowers in August and September, and the scent goes all the way through the bush. There is a lot of other orchids and ferns in that area. In the Chalumbin, Wooroora, Glen Gordon area, huge big timber trees and wildlife and bird life. These are some of the bird life and wildlife that I know living so long there. Snakes, pythons 6 to 8 metres long and others. Platypus in the Blunder Creek. Possums and gliders, yellow belly gliders and other gliders. Parrots, king parrots and other parrots. Magnificent ant brood frogs. Wombi and other pigeons. There is tree kangaroos. There is emus. There's cassowary. There's brolga. There's quail. There's kangaroo rats. There's tiger rats. Eastern grey roos. Whiptail roos. Pretty face koalas. And when he's talking about those areas with the Second World War on Mount Pandamus and Black Mountain, the bombers came from Townsville, and the only way that they could get to Darwin was on these two or three features on the 3 mountains, because they've got poles of rocks that are up to my chest that are probably 8 foot wide, about 8 foot wide by 10 foot wide, and they had satellite dishes upside down on them. And what the bombers used to do is they'd come from Townsville and Brisbane, and they'd fly there, and because they didn't have GPS, they'd use these markers to centralise themselves with a bearing so that they could get to Darwin. They had no other way to get to Darwin apart those 3 features on those mountains. And with my expertise with bombs and stuff, that was 13 years of my life dropping bombs and stuff. There is thousands of ammunitions out there that will kill somebody if they get the heavy machinery in. And there's also ladies' business, men's business, and all the indigenous business there that is sacred that we can't even go and plot because of the fact that the locals still don't go there to this day, but they know where those areas are. Thank you for listening.
Just to let you know that we acknowledge and appreciate, we haven't seen passion like this. Bob and I, we protest shoulder to shoulder with the Greens and the conservation movement when it comes to the potential uranium mine to be constructed right beside Kilbottom Creek that runs into the Burdekin River and had the potential of destroying the Charter Stow's water supply. And we just said, like hell, this is not going to happen. You know, we've seen big gas companies come in here and rip out billions of litres of water, billions of dollars of profit overseas, and we get, jack shit. And this is very, very similar, where you see the federal government provide a subsidy for these big windmill companies, to set up, make billions of dollars of profit, but all the money goes to seas. There's not a single cent that goes to hospitals and schools and roads and everything. So the benefit of this, all that we get out of this is an eyesore. There's no contribution from the mining company. The destruction of our native fauna and flora. I want to say this too, which is really important. I want to acknowledge, the Keep Shallumba Wild team, the WW Rainforest, all yous, because you're putting up a very strong case. We had put a case up there for this wind farm out there at Walkerman. We had a loss, but we didn't have a strong campaign behind it. I really believe there's a lot of hope. Bob's been communicating with the federal minister down there in Parliament. There's been a lot of momentum. You're playing a very, very strong part here. And
So Shane asked a question on notice with regards to Chalumbin, and Stephen Miles, the Deputy Premier, got up in all his arrogance and said, why are you worried about the wind farm? Because there's offsets. Yeah, environmental offsets.
I love that.
And offsets is not, offsets are pathetic. And they've been proven to be a scam. An offset is you go and clear 1,000 hectares here, we'll conserve 1,000 hectares here. So for example, Caban, the offset for Caban was purely the area on the site that wasn't cleared. Yeah, that's fact. That's the offset. So with Chalumbin, they're going to clear 1,200 hectares. So what they've done, they've drawn some lines, some polygons on the map saying, well, this area over here, we'll never clear that. And we'll manage that for biodiversity. We'll fence it off and we'll manage it. So That's what they do.
Serious about it.
It's a scam. Yeah. So what Stephen Miles said to you is a scam, and he's got no legs to stand on that argument. Just going back to Chalumbin, it is now a fact that Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners are the financiers behind this development. So Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, CIP, look it up. They're a Scandinavian superannuation fund. The outcome is you're going to have a foreign multinational superannuation company financing Chalumbin. So as we pay for our electricity, that money is going to go back to Korea Zinc, who own the project, and Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, who are the financiers, and our electricity bills will be going into paying interest. And how they can bring electricity prices down has got me beat.
Who pays for the transmission lines that's going up?
We do.
Is it not the company that build it?
No.
And that's the issue what we've got now. So these developers are coming in and cherry picking the cheapest locations that are hard up against the transmission lines.
Oh, of course, yes.
And it's these areas that may not necessarily have the best wind resources.
I was thinking about that.
And that's the problem. So there's no mapping. Just going back to my meeting with Mick de Brenny, Mick de Brenny said that the state government does not have adequate wind resource mapping for this state. The CSIRO did all the mapping. Twiggy Forest has bought all that mapping with exclusive use. So Twiggy Forest, Squadron Energy own all the good high definition wind mapping for this state. So we don't have that, we don't know. So they're going into the cheapest locations. And what we want to see is, and Bob and Shane have been working on that, is the copper string 2.0. And that's what we'd rather see, is proper planning. We want proper planning done for the state, for the rollout of renewables in this state. Because we're at the forefront of this. There's so many other communities now that are being just smashed by the wind industry that don't know what's happening on their doorstep. There's no, like I just said before, there is no need for these wind farm industries to have consultation. They don't need to. There's nothing in place for them to have to do that. Just going back to the wet tropics, the wet tropics indicated, I got a good feeling from the wet tropics that we may win Chalumbin. They couldn't say that, but it's all about the messaging by the Federal Environment Minister.
We don't know when the minister's going to hand down her decision, and it could be up to 7 weeks. I think it's somewhere around July. 20th of July, yes. And I just encourage everybody to, if you can get on your Facebook sites and get the email address, and don't do, like an email exactly the same as everyone else. Do something different, send it separately, and we've just got to hammer, the federal government right up until, even if you want to CC the state minister, but just keep hammering them. We will be doing it. Send us those too, and we will forward it on to the federal minister as well. But we just want to keep, come home strong right to the end. I just believe there's a chance here. Bob and I will be contributing more and putting up the pressure. We'll be putting on advertisement and to our opposition in the Cairns Post, the Express newspaper, the Sunday Mail, and also other newspapers across the state to keep that pressure on. So just to let you know that we're not going to give up, and we're not going to surrender on this. And I just believe that there is a bit of hope here. I believe.
This is our community, and we need to protect what's left of our beautiful forests, our environment, for the people. And we will be united with the Jitterbal Aboriginal people as well. Also, these need to have homes on fences in the most exposed places.